Hey everyone. I just wanted to do a quick analysis of the last debate that just happened between Hez Sultana and Nadir Ahmed. I posted my comments on how I feel about the discussion, and overall, I just wanted to talk about it a bit because I feel like there was many good points that were not covered in the debate, and it got kind of stuck on a very specific one or two points there. I really do feel like the 2 minutes thing, going back and forth every 2 minutes, is not productive, and doesn't allow you to go through the material properly. That being said, I just want to go to what I feel is I just want to share my perspective on this because I feel like there was so much that could have been said that wasn't said. So I'm going to share my screen here, and the first thing I want to go back to is what I discussed in my first debate, that there's 5 points, there's 5 issues that you have to look at when you want to prove this book is a scientific miracle. The first issue is the issue of borrowing. So you find that many of these claims existed in the past, the same exact claim that exists in the Quran, for example. One good example is mountains as pegs. It exists also in previous books. The second issue is the issue of triviality. I think this is the biggest problem of all. The biggest problem of all is the issue of triviality, which is that many great scientific, for example, points were made much before the Quran made them, and these are from sources that don't even claim divinity, right? So the issue of triviality. Of course, there's also straight up scientific errors in the Quran, which is what his Sultan was focusing on. He was trying to make it clear that the Quran says, flesh and then bones and then flesh again, and I thought it was saying just bones and then flesh. So clearly it's a little bit ambiguous as well, what exactly it's saying. And the last issue is the issue of tafsir, which is, are we saying what the Quran is saying, or are we adding our own interpretation, right? And the main thing is, when you go to the Quran, is does it meet the burden of proof to say this book is from God? Because the Quran needs to show itself to be the book from God, because otherwise anybody can come and say, this book is from God, this book is not from God. And is this something Muhammad could have written? If so, then we don't have to look at it, right? And we don't have to say there's anything special about it, right? Hamza Soitis has actually talked about this.
False historical narrative. Because people are saying, no one knew this information at the time in the 7th century. That's not true. Let me give you some examples. Consider the setting down of iron. In the Quran, in chapter 57, verse 25, the Quran says, and we sent down iron. Yes, this is relatively true, that in some meteorites you have iron ore, right? So iron was sent down from that perspective. Does that mean it's a scientific miracle? No, because you had the ancient Egyptians 1400 years before the prophethood of the Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace, they described iron as ba en pet, which means iron from heaven. Right?
So this is the first point I wanted to bring up, that we have prominent Muslim apologists such as Hamza Soitis here, who have already gone through this whole, Quran contains scientific miracles, and they've discussed and they've debated with people. And before the debate, I tried to send Nadir this information. He even emailed Hamza Soitis himself, and Hamza said, listen, I don't want to get involved in these live conversations. You just need to review my material first. Like, just go through the material. This stuff has already been explained in great detail by me, right? So it's just going over the same thing all over again, right? I just want to give an example of ancient scientific wisdom that I brought forward in my last debate. If man could soar high above the clouds, Earth would resemble one of those balls which has leather covering in 12 places. So Plato, much before Islam, is saying the Earth is a ball. We don't even find this in the Quran. The Quran says we've made the Earth, spread out, or we made it. It seems like it's talking about a flat Earth, right? And this is another little clip where Osama Hassan talks about how, in the history of Islam, the tafsirs have never really led people to the correct understanding. It's always been, oh, I can't play it because it's too large, but it's always an issue with, this sheikh actually thought, one of the sheikhs was Imam Suyuti or Imam Jalalain, or one of them was saying that he thought the Quran talked about a flat earth. The other one thought the Quran was bringing forth a geocentric, understanding of the universe. So it's always been a problematic thing when you read the Quran. It's never historically been something that really matched with science, right? And so this is another problem. Post-diction involves explanation after the fact, right? So again, when we read the Quran, do we really find anything in it that's amazing, that's, blows us away? And the reality is, no, we don't. We find exactly what we expect to find, right? Like, these are all common points from the last debate, which I think are actually perfect for, so I'm just going to go through. Oh, here we go. So this is an embryology claim. And this is my summary of the issue. The Quran's purpose was not to convince by science. This is a modern approach, right? This is something done by Sheikh Zindani in the 90s. He wanted to bring forward this Quran and science, so he brought people from all over the world, including the two people that Nadir Ahmed brought forward, which was, Keith Moore and that Prasad guy. And both of these guys, I talk about them on my blog. So, the thing is the Quran saying something that we can actually see when we just look at animal embryos? And yes, it does that. The Quran misses valuable concepts such as sperm and the female egg. Quran doesn't mention either one of these things. And then I said only one person claiming it's miraculous. In fact, I don't even think he's claiming it's miraculous. Keith Moore in his book is basically just saying that it's something that was historically described in this way. And I'll even show you from the book. And lastly, even Muslims are abandoning the science paradigm now. So like I've already showed that, right? So I want to show a little clip from Hamza Soitis in Understanding Science in the Quran.
As an example. Number one, the scientific fact in embryology is the implantation of the blastocyst in the uterine wall. Implantation can be attributed as a safe place. Number two, the Quran uses the words qararin makin, which can mean a safe place. Number three, therefore the Quran is describing the scientific fact of the implantation of the blastocyst. Well, this is not true, because you have ulama like Ibn Kathir, the exegete of the Quran, the one who explained the Quran. He basically says this just means the womb in general. And there's nothing miraculous here, because you can see this with the naked eye. The baby is safe in the womb. The safe place is the womb. Now you may argue, yes, but it can mean implantation in the uterine wall, because that's a safe place too. Maybe. But you could never claim miracle. You could only claim miracle if that would be the only conclusion you can have. If there's an alternative conclusion that is more naturalistic, that can be explained naturalistically, then you can't claim miracle anymore. Khalas, it's gone.
Okay. So I'm just going to pause that right there. So just to get back to my point is that this is not... You have even Muslims now who believe the word is an infallible word of God that are publicly acknowledging that you can't make this claim anymore. It's just not possible, right? Like, this doesn't stand up to scrutiny. Like, when you talk to actual people that know what they're talking about and who have actually debated this issue, for example, I'm just going to show a book. And Embryology in Quran Spotlight. So there's two great resources I have, which were very helpful for me. I'm going to share my screen again. Right. So one of them is called Embryology in the Quran, Much Ado About Nothing, which was a refutation of Hamza Andreas Soitis' book that he wrote about embryology. And this was done by two atheists who went through, and you can actually read the whole book online. It goes from step to step in detail. This was a great resource. Because of this, Hamza Soitis, repealed his book. He removed it, and now he has a new analysis saying that there's no scientific miracles. So he's already gone through this already, right? And yet you still have, apologists like Nadir who want to say, no, the Quran is science in it. No, the Quran is science, but it's such a broken paradigm. It's just a flawed thing to be preaching that it's just silly, right? The other thing is there's this beautiful post here on Quran Spotlight, which is Greek and Jewish ideas about reproduction in the Quran and Hadith, and it goes through in detail how, again, it's such a flawed. The issue is not just that it's wrong. The issue is that it's completely matching 7th century Galenic medicine, and Galen never claimed that he was speaking to God, right? We're talking about a Greek scientist that basically said that, this is how embryology worked. This is something that came to Muhammad's time. He got this information and he put it in the Quran, how he understood it, right? And we see that from the fact that it's missing things that we know now. It doesn't get things right. It doesn't get the order right. It's just an appeal to like to the design, design argument. Can't you see how Allah has designed the world so beautifully? So worship Allah and obey Muhammad, right? That's basically what it is. Another example I will show, which again is the issue of triviality, which Richard Carrier has talked about, is he wrote an article called Epicurus versus Muhammad, where in this article, Richard Carrier, the atheist academic, what he's done is he's gone into the book that Epicurus wrote, and he found all of these examples of predictions that we have an atheist philosopher making much before the Quran. And these are things that he managed to come up with from his own brain, like the atom, the molecule, the law of inertia, the rain cycle, and the list goes on and on. Right? There's 22 items in this list that Epicurus managed to come up with, right? As reported by Lucretius in his poetic summary, right? So we're talking about atheist philosophers who, like much before Muhammad, have come up with, predictions in nature that blow away the Quran, that completely blow away the Quran, and they don't even claim that they're speaking to Allah, right? So again, we're looking at something that's like mediocre in the Quran, and we're saying, oh, this is so amazing, right? We made a sperm drop into a clinging clot, and we made the clot into a lump of flesh, and then we made from the lump bones, and we covered the bones with flesh, right? This is silly. Okay, so just to go through my blog a little bit more, I'm going to skip the mistake that Muhammad made in the hadith. We have others as well that have made quite some impressive claims about embryology. We have Charaka Samhita, which was an Indian surgeon, and he spoke about the fetus, and much before Muhammad. Aristotle as well. Again, no claims about divinity from any of them, or that they were speaking to God. And then you have Keith Moore, that people keep propping him up as if he's and this Prasad guy. And people are saying that this is so amazing, but if you look at it, he actually mentions other people too. He mentions Aristotle, he mentions Galen, he mentions Talmud. And then in the section called Embryology in the Middle Ages, he basically says the Holy Book of Islam says that human beings are produced from a mixture of secretions from the male and female. Okay, so he's basically saying, and then he's saying later on it's said to resemble a chewed substance. Like, he's not, like, does it even say anything miraculous there? No, he's just going through the history, right? So just going through the history of what was said, right? Like, and then he even talks about the ancient Egyptians, right? Talks about the ancient Egyptians. He talks about another ancient Indian embryologist from 1400 BC, much before even Jesus's time. And it talks about how the embryo comes about from conception, and after 7 days, it becomes a vesicle, and then it becomes a spherical mass, and then it becomes a firm mass, and then the head is formed, and then the limbs appear. We're talking about, stuff that people knew. I mean, people studied this and knew this. You don't need God. You don't need God to come and tell you these things, right? Like, it's just, this is like Richard Carrier says, the issue of triviality. That's exactly what it is. Like, it's an issue of triviality. Like, our expectations of God have become so little, like so low, that we accept this like half-baked claims, and we don't look into it, right? And the source which Nadir Ahmed brought up was not a peer-reviewed journal. It's a journal that is actually no longer in print since 2012. It's the article is just basically, it's a propaganda piece. It's a piece that's Islamic journal that's just basically making claims. There's no studies being done. There's nothing there. It's literally just like an article that it's an Islamic medical journal, right? Like, I mean, they have a purpose. They're trying to show the Islamic perspective, I guess. The last time they've been posting is 2012. This journal is completely gone now. And it's not a peer-reviewed journal, it's an Islamic journal, right? So I mean, this is not a good source to prove the Quran embryology. I think his had a good set of slides. I kind of wish that he had time to present the slides, because I think the slides go into a lot more detail. So that's it. That's all I wanted to share. Just my 2-minute, 10-minute summary of the conversation that they had. I do wish that it would have, you would have been able to go through more of the material, because there's so much here that when you look at it, it shows that the Quran is not the word of God. That it's just like we just have low expectations for people, and we think a little bit. We just expect so little. It's just like we just let people get away with it. They make these claims that even Muhammad himself wasn't trying to make, and we just let them get away with it, right? So I wanted to share my analysis. That's basically it. Thanks for watching. I have a new video coming out very soon. I hope once I have a bit of time to edit it, put together, which is going to be on the science of prophethood, how science explains prophets, and how the brain science, specifically the brain science. And I'm going to be quoting some Muslims, and I'm going to be talking. I'm going to be quoting some neuroscientists, and I have some clips, some videos in there as well. I'm looking forward to publish that once I have a bit of time to finish it up. Maybe in a week or two, it'll be there. Thanks. Bye.